go. Are we still letting people in?
We're good though.
Okay. Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you once again for taking the opportunity to join us for another quick update. I realize that you're all probably hearing oodles of things out there, and I would hope that I beat the rumors and share information as soon as we get it. So we're trying to send out messages and having these meetings whenever I hear anything new. I have to say that after the message that we sent out yesterday, I honestly don't believe that there's anything new per se. But I'd rather have these Zoom sessions to share any information that's been unofficially happening. Mainly because if there's a rumor going out there, I want you to know that I know about it, but I want you to also know from me that we haven't gotten any formalities over any of it. And so we did get a new surge of questions, and I appreciate that someone sent me, instead of a question, a comment, which I appreciate, and that is if I could maybe read off some of the questions during the meeting. I agree with that, and I think that we did that initially, and then slowly we got fewer and fewer questions, and so we just went into more of a narrative. What I will say though is that for this last surge of questions, they probably all piled up into two big categories. And so I'm not going to go through those specific questions, but just share as much as I can in each of those categories. Someone also asked a question, because I've been taking quite a few of the Zoom meetings in my office, who the paintings in my background are. And those are Simon Bolivar. And someone actually put it in the chat box the last time and got me all excited. But the historical significance is that Simon Bolivar liberated most of South America from Spanish reign. And so a major historical figure for the Hispanic folk. And so it has a big impact in my life, and I would say my career. So if you come to my office, when all of this is over, you could appreciate some of that. I also have some other non-Simon Bolivar art for those that may have questions. It's a little bit of non-Simon Bolivar art. So I wanted to get started on just some brief updates on summer and fall for 2020, preparations, questions that we have, uncertainties that we have, and start from there. As I've shared before, summer 1 and 2 are planned for online delivery, where summer 2, we have a date in May where we're going to make that final determination whether we're just going to do online in summer 2 or not. The reason that these are important is because you've been hearing in the media that there are some colleges on the mainland that have made determinations out to like the next spring because of COVID-19 and possible social distancing issues. What I can tell you at this point is that this is the plan that we have up to summer 2, and for fall, we're more or less treating it as normal, but I have nudged quite a bit to go up to the system level so that we have a decision made for fall sooner rather than later, because we realize that it takes quite a bit of effort to plan something for online and then switch it back to face-to-face and vice versa. So the more time that we're able to provide to you, as well as our students for planning, there's going to be quite a bit of change if we have to flip from one to the other. So I'm looking for a decision to come pretty soon. Again, there is quite a bit that's happening in consultation with an UBA work group, as well as other conversations that are happening system-wide, where we get some modest updates, but we don't have one yet for fall. Just for that consideration though, fall, we do have our classes face-to-face and online, and we're just using some typical ways of scheduling them and registration until further notice, until we get any more updates on that. I do wanna, one of the questions that came in was whether registration's open. Registration's been open since April 6th. And so for both summer and fall, so students have been registering. I worry a little bit about the current trends. I don't know if any of you are looking into these, but what I can tell you is that as of this morning, and I check every morning and every evening, We are currently 17% down on headcount compared to the same time last year for fall. That being said, we know we project that there would be a reduction in enrollment for the fall because of uncertainty. But at the same time, we project that because of the economic situation and the unemployment rates, we're going to eventually see an uptick in enrollment. I'm just hopeful that we're able to balance it where maybe that uptick comes a little bit sooner than it has in the past during recession years. What I wanted to also mention is that while I'm not incredibly proud that we're 17% down on the enrollment, we are doing really good compared to our peers. Not a laughing matter, but I am very proud of what we're doing since we have the lowest of the declines.
Just say like Capilani's down 30%.
There you go, and Maui's down almost 60%.
Yeah.
So I think that we have a ways to go. The system has a ways to go, but I do want to remind us all that it's very early in the registration period, and unlike other semesters, early college is not something that we really have set to count on for this fall. And the reason that I say that is because with the DOE dealing with their own situations and us not being able to do active placement and placement, early college could be a monster, and it represents a huge component of our total enrollment. So whereas we may look good right now, later on when we begin to catch up, it may not look as good. So whatever we could do, I'm hopeful that we could work together to help improve on the enrollment. Another quick message, or rather comment, is we've been asked what are we doing to prepare if in the fall we need to maintain social distancing. To be honest with you, this is one of those situations where in as much of planning that we could do, and I think that I'm in about 12 Zoom meetings of planning every day, there isn't enough time to really plan for all situations. In the event that in the fall we have to sustain some level of social distancing, we're going to have to go into overhaul and planning as we get closer to it. And so there would be considerations in classes that we could help push online if that's where we need to go, as well as having classrooms where distancing is a little bit more of an option. But we haven't really had a meaningful conversation or planning if we were to have to do that for the fall. I just wanted to be totally transparent there. There were questions about credit, no credit, especially because I think from the last time that we spoke and this time, there were messages that came out from the system, and we've all been having conversations over what's going on with credit, no credit. What I can tell you is that we're putting together information to be shared on process for how the students will deal with credit, no credit. What I want to convey from my end, though, is credit, no credit is an amazing option because we don't want to hold students in harm given the current situation. That being said, it's not the best option for every student. And so we don't want to just blanket statements say that everyone will benefit from credit, no credit, because there can be implications. And so the best thing that we can do is inform our students of the options, but then have them really vet those with their counselors. Because depending on what they want to do in the future, depending on the program that they're in, and depending on their academic progress and circumstances, there could be repercussions to take into credit, no credit. I worry about the financial component and the student's ability to continue with their academic progress if they opt for credit, no credit. And so more information will be coming out. Information did go out to the students, so maybe you're getting bombarded with questions. It'd be very easy for us to just say, let's just all do credit, no credit. But given all of the implications, it's just best that the students do evaluate all options before they commit to it. There is the deadline, and I thought I wrote it here, but I didn't. I can't remember when the deadlines are.
For grades is for Leaworth, the grades are due May 19th at 3 p.m. And then the student has the option of going to credit or no credit by May 22nd, 4 p.m. So it's imperative that our faculty and lecturers turn their grades on time. Every semester, we need to chase after some people to turn their grades in, and please make sure that you have them in on time, because we do not want our students to have any problems if they wish to change to credit. So they need to see their grade first. So thank you.
Thank you, Kay. And that's important. That's a nuance to this credit, no credit model, because in the past, some of us may have had that within our programs and our grading scales. And in this case, the student's not necessarily committing prior to knowing their grade. They're going to be able to see their grade and make a commitment. And that's, again, just because of the COVID-19 circumstances. And I think that it's a valuable option for them. Okay, moving on a little bit, budgetary implications. This is where I think, you know, the next couple of sections are going to be the bulk of the conversation, and where I may have some answers, and then I'm going to be, as you know, you know, the politician that I'm turning to be here and addressing these topics. I'm going to dance around a little bit if I don't have a full answer. We've communicated through email the various, you know, memos that have come out relative to the actions that we are taking as a system and as a college to address the very likely economic shortcomings as a result of COVID-19. And so big highlights on that, of course, are freezes on major contracts that are perceived non-essential, as well as a freeze on all travel at this point. And the one that I think that I've gotten the most questions about, of course, is a freeze on hires. Initially, we had some more nebulous information, but through one of the memos that recently came out from Erica Lacroix's office, we have a little bit more of an idea on how to deal with these. We're still not there yet. So any vacancies, we are right now frozen. We can't move forward with them. These vacancies are anything that's covered with general fund dollars and other non-grant dollars. So if we have federal grants, we could move with those hires, but anything else is frozen. It lends itself in the language on the memo to having exceptions. You're going to hear this from me, and you're going to hear it from me until I hear otherwise. It is a pretty solid freeze. And so the exceptions are going to be few, if any. I have been pretty intentional in communicating with Erica Lacroix's office in trying to ensure that we could carry on with our operations. And we have many positions that are vacant, many which are critical. And so we're hoping that we get a little bit more guidance on what may be allowable. But the questions, some of the questions that came up, and I'm probably jumping a little bit here. Some of the questions that came up relative to hire freeze is how, you know, what's going to happen with the BCAA search. There are other searches that were well underway already and got stuck on the freeze, including our mental health counselor and others. And so we understand that UHCC and UH is going to put together a form for exceptions that we're going to be able to submit and make a strong case for. We also understand that very few are going to probably slip through. And so I am not here today to say that we're doing away with any of the searches or any of the positions. I'm just saying that we're putting a temporary pause on it until we get further clarity on it. I have already been in a conversation to defend Leeward's position on you know, existing vacancies and the search process with Erica and Mike Unabasami. We had some feedback, but again, I think that they're just doing a litmus test of where all of the community colleges are to then come up with a systematic process of addressing these needs. I'm going to pause a second on the hire freeze because there's something that I find really important. I do know that in the past we've had similar processes during the last recession, but also realize that we don't know yet whether the impact of COVID-19 is coming to us, you know, to a close, or if it's going to persist even longer for state implications. And so I think that the immediate hard freeze and halt on everything is until we have a better idea of what's going to happen. And eventually, and over time, there'll be some loosening where we may be able to start chasing after some of our positions. I have a personal interest in getting a lot of our positions filled, but I also realize that any savings that we could have would benefit us in the long run. Okay, continuing with the hire freeze, a lot of the other questions revolved around our lecturers. Will we be able to hire lecturers? And this especially stemmed because in Erica LaCroix's most recent memo, she indicated that all, I forget the exact wording, but all of these temporary hires of sorts would need to have her approval before we move forward with them. It opened up that lane of conversation. Also important to note is that when the governor first came up with his memo on restrictions on hire, instruction was one of those areas that was more or less exempt. We still need to be very intentional in how we move forward. And so we have to deliver instruction. We want to continue providing our services to our students. And so we're going to make the commitment to work with the division chairs and the existing instructors to try to push through whatever we need. But from me, you're hearing that those would have to go through some type of exception process, which I think is not the same scrutiny level that would be for backfilling a permanent vacancy. Okay, now a little bit more on the budgetary implications, and I sent this in the message yesterday. Don't quote me on terminology because I'm usually not spot on when it comes to this, but we've had a 5% budgetary set aside that evidently we've always had. And at the end of the year, if the state's doing okay, then we're allowed to spend that 5%. This year, we're not going to be able to spend on that 5%, but that's something that we've already accounted for. More recently, we had an additional 2% restriction on our current fiscal year. And so that's something that we are again trying to maneuver. It's not an astronomically big number, but it's a number nonetheless that we have to consider as we continue to finish out this fiscal year. With all of that, all of the budgetary language and all of the hire freeze components that I've shared, I do want to say something that it's a little bit difficult for me to say too. We've been making some progress in some areas, doing some reorganizations and building out for our Native Hawaiian Affairs unit. This is something that I'm not taking away commitment from and that I'm not forward for, but given the current budgetary situation and the hire freeze that we're living, this is something that we're going to put our finger on and pause for the moment until we're able to lift that a little bit. I say this because we are in oodles of meetings right now, just trying to address the more immediate needs as of today. And so it's difficult to move forward and also move forward not knowing whether we will have the approvals to continue building on those reorganizations. And so we'll continue updating as more of this continues to evolve. The next section of questions really, I center around, faculty and UBA considerations. There are changes to things the way we would do them typically, and or, how do we deal with things like tenure promotion and contract renewals on the faculty side? Well, a lot of these decisions are not locally made at Leeward. A lot of these decisions are things that need to be considered at the system level as well as with UBA consultation, especially because we don't want to, make decisions that don't jive with the existing contract and or make decisions that are different across the board for all of the CCs. And so questions that have come about recently include, do we gotta go come to campus to review dossiers for or materials for the lecturers? Do we have, what's going on with the renewals and tenures and promotions that we've just finalized, are those gonna go through? Are we gonna this coming year be able to submit for promotions and whatnot? So all of those questions are truly valuable. I have not heard yet that the 10-year promotions and renewals that just finalized, I've not heard that any of that is gonna get stuck anywhere in the process. Okay, not saying that that can't change, but I'm saying that I've not heard that any of that is changing, and that again is something where UPA would have to be consulted in an agreement with. As it relates to everything in the future, I have heard that the UPA work group has had conversations on many of these topics, and that there are areas where there may be consensus already. We are still waiting on memos to come to us with any of these decisions being finalized. I won't make any comments on those because I don't want to suggest that something's coming and then it doesn't come, and then I'm held, responsible for it. But just know that all of these considerations, I've sent them to the system and or to wherever they're being considered. Kay and her BCAA conversations, as well as conversations with Don Straney, those conversations have been happening. I know that on the faculty senate side, as it relates to faculty considerations, these conversations have been happening as well. So I know that there's conversation. What we don't have are the final outcomes from it. But just know, I hope that you're getting a sense of my style. The moment that I get something that I think it's important, I will not only send it out, but I will provide an opportunity for questions and an opportunity for us to exchange more, not in person, but the closest to that we can. The next one is, I got a question on, that was a little bit more specific on social distancing. And that was because we've in the past had students doing research on campus, especially in the sciences. And so whether we would allow for that to happen or not, you know what, I almost wanted to say, I'm not going to respond to it, although I feel like I want to respond to it. Honestly, we can't put ourselves in the position where we're promoting the idea of moving away from social distancing. That being said, in research models, you usually don't have the volume of students, and I know that there's some research that's still happening at Jackson and other areas where it just carries on. I don't want to commit to say that I want to publicize that we will do it, but I'm going to commit to saying that I will evaluate a little bit more what everyone else is doing to see whether it's something that we can continue doing or not. All I'm going to say from a selfish standpoint is that if we do promote any of this happening, we have to have consideration for the folks that are going to be here with the students. We can't control what the students do at home, and ultimately have to clean space and replenish things. And just as a consideration to our employees, I want to, I want to take all that into consideration before we make any commitments. I also recently, actually in yesterday's message, I communicated that we have received our first of stimulus funding. And so the federal government has set aside some monies to help out, small businesses, big businesses, and everyone to try to cope with the current situation with the intent of trying to keep operations as normal as possible. The wave of stimulus that's come about through CARES Act is a funding set aside for education. Higher ed received the bucket. I think just about every college received a certain amount. Leeward Community College received, I believe it's $2,060,000 from that first wave. And that money, at least half of it, has to go for direct student support. I got a question on this, on what are we doing with it, how are we going to share it, when is it going to happen, and all of this. Great questions, because it put us on a, it's in line with what we're currently trying to address. If you heard President Lassner yesterday share to the Board of Regents, not only have we received these monies, but UH is trying to come up with a consistent approach to sharing these dollars with students. And so we're trying to come up with some of this. There's been a little bit of conversations happening with different buckets of individuals to see how we could make the best out of these dollars. I don't have any finalized idea. I've been part of some of these conversations. Just know that we are trying to address the students' needs to the best of our ability. But $1 million just doesn't go that far for the total number of students that we serve. And so we have to do something that's a little bit more intentional. Some of the ideas that have floated around is to piggyback on the emergency fund that came through the UH Foundation that we've already enacted. And it seems that this is something that we want to do. What we want to make sure we don't do is put the students through a major ordeal to get these dollars. It's meant to help them, and if we put them to writing a dissertation to get $200, it just doesn't seem fair. So we want to make it equitable, we want to make it fair, and want to make it so that, you know, the students that are Windward or Kapiolani and Leeward start saying, oh, well, they did it this way and they did it that way, because we have a lot of students that float around. And so we do want a level of consistency for that. So we had the relief fund. We're trying to align how the CARES Act money is going to be shared for the students. And we're trying to be intentional in what we do. One of the areas that usually community colleges comes off as glowing during these hard times is the short-term training to get folks back in the workforce. And so on our OSUD side, we're trying to be creative. Right now, you know, healthcare is taking a hit, but there are other sectors that are going to take a hit where there's going to be quite a few individuals that have either already lost their jobs or maybe losing their jobs in the near future. And we want to retune so that they can find, you know, areas where they could fill some workforce demand that we're currently not meeting. And so you may have seen some of the messages that have come about. On the workforce side, we put together and tried to lift off a farm tech program that was offered on a face-to-face modality to shift that online almost overnight. And you can imagine in most of the workforce areas, there's a lot of physical activity and or clinicals and that type of thing. But we have a really good thing going with the farm tech program where our students, through our partnerships with some of the workforce agencies, are being hired instead of putting them through a clinical. So they'll complete their clinical but be hired at the same time. I think it's an amazing model. It's more or less like an accelerated apprenticeship. I think it shows a lot of commitment from both the education side and the workforce side to helping make these programs work. We're looking at other opportunities of developing a little bit more online so that we could continue supporting students and our community and getting back into the workforce. Now, the other thing that's bubbling up is that I've been sharing this, and I hope that it begins to stick, almost like we know what our WIG is. You know, enrollment is something that we all need to work for collectively. And so knowing that we may see a dip and hopefully see a spike, but that if we could sort of balance it out from the very beginning, it could help balance out our checkbook. You know, what are we doing intentionally to help support our summer and fall enrollment? And so just so that you know, we have been pushing more on digital media. I could tell you from personal experience, I have a first, second, and third grader that are completing their first, second, and third grade online at this point. And what I appreciate is that I'm an early bird. I wake up really early. I have my second grader waking up at the same time with me. He goes on the computer and starts doing his homework just to get it over with. We're talking about 6 a.m. It's pretty crazy to have you know, a second grader wake up that early without being told to. But they're going in, he's going online too. He's playing games with his friends. And, you know, the digital media becomes really important because we have a lot of the DOE students that are currently at home. So that's where we're putting a bit of the effort and promoting a lot more of what would be, you know, what we would have otherwise shared with our high school partners, and then our returning adult learners, and then our current students. We need to do pushes wherever we can. The narrative right now, and if I'm looking from the consumer standpoint and I'm at home, the uncertainty of what comes in the future is just really big. And so if we could help, bridge that gap, most people begin to think of education as a fourth thing in their mind when there's so much uncertainty. We need to try to bring education a little bit closer because it does impact everything on their list when you're thinking about important things in life. And so the digital media is big. We're trying to push a lot more of our online partnerships, our articulations, our fully online programs, because it helps alleviate some of the uncertainty. If you're trying to commit into education, but you're not sure because you're looking at our website and we're not sure what's going to happen in the fall, it leads to that uncertainty. And then the other thing is a huge push. And I don't know if you've been looking at what we've been trying to retweet and put on the media, but FAFSA, get to it. Now is the time to push through for some of our students that haven't already. And so that's a huge determinant on whether a student's able to persist or not. And many people are feeling defeated. So an opportunity to engage them in that capacity, we're going to push a little bit more there. We're also going to push any other funding and scholarship that we have so as to continue mitigating some of the challenges that some of our students are facing. We have seen increases in over the years. I'm not talking about today, but we have seen increases in the number of applicants that we get. So it's a matter of trying to help them make it to the finish line of that enrollment process. And a lot of times, they stall because of the finances. That students are not, and parents are not sure how to make it work. And so if we could provide anything more out there as a resource for our students in our community, I think that we could help balance out a little bit of our enrollment challenges. And so that was all in a breath. I don't know if there are questions already there, but I will entertain questions that are in the chat box.
I think the only one really is just an appreciation that you were bringing up the mental health counselor position because of the, especially now, the present and post-pandemic, it will certainly bring a need. And this is Lori Labarios, to everyone, just reminding everybody that we do have Dr. Takeda and Dr. Singh, who's doing a helping our students. There was some discussion about casual hires and lecturers, and Mark came on to say the only lecturers that are casual hires are in the program. So that should make all the lecturers feel aware.
Yeah.
No, it's just going to make them aware. So, and Ron wrote a little bit about farm tech. Do you want to talk about that, Carlos?
I touched a little bit.
You did. I'm sorry, I was reading at the time. And I was also commenting to Helmut, who as a microbiologist was laughing at me for wearing a mask and touching my face. So on the phone, I was saying it's really a prop because I'm a theater person. So, but I don't think anybody's got a question. If any of you want to type in anything right now.
Well, there was one question regarding lecture evals. I think there's probably some lecturers out there. And they were asking, do they need to come to campus to review their lecture dossiers with the division chair? And I would say, reach out to your division chair because you should be able to do this via Zoom or Google Hangouts. I know I was contacted by a division chair asking, some of the lecturers are in agreement, they don't even need a conference. Is that okay? As long as you have a consensus and the lecturer is willing to sign off that they agree with the evaluation and test it, that's fine with me. Other questions have been about tenure and promotion documents. Can they submit it online? There are a limited number of spaces in which we can submit online dossiers for tenure and or promotion. I have asked, it's been about a week and a half now, for the system to give me a deadline date and who can contact if our faculty are interested in submitting online. I have not received an answer, but I will follow that up with our VCA meeting this afternoon. And I will let you know if and when that date is available. Okay.
Thank you. I do have one that I was asked to share this comment, which is really important, by the way. For those of us that are committing any time on the COVID-19 work from home leave, if you could please submit by 4 o'clock today. A message came out from UH asking 4:30. So I'm asking that we commit by 4 o'clock to submit our COVID-19 leave. With all of the stimulus funding, we're trying to come up with a way in which UH can, gather all of the data for the impact levels of COVID-19 for the university. And so it's important for them to have the reporting capacity. I just wanted to toss that in there for those of us that could submit that.
I put out last call for questions, but is there a directive for faculty coming to offices and staying there to work? I care for my elderly mom and I'm concerned about the possibilities of others on campus who may be asymptomatic and spending time in common areas.
Wait, what's the question? I'm sorry.
Is there a directive for faculty and staff coming and working in common areas? Like, should they be wearing the mask like me, but properly as opposed to improperly? Just in terms of if they are asymptomatic and if they're somewhere in a common area.
That's, I'm gonna dance around this question mainly because we've been following whatever guidance we get from the mayor in terms of expectations. I think that for any of us that have been walking around campus, if you see me in common areas, I myself am wearing a mask. And most people, I think everyone, is wearing a mask, and there's very few of us. I think that as this continues to move forward until a time where we begin to come back to campus, because there are very few of us here, if we begin to come back to campus, we probably will set a recommendation just for the social distancing and precautions. But right now, again, most of us are wearing them. So if you do have to come, I would ask that you wear a mask, but it's not something that required.
Okay. A question about military and that they have reinstated, someone's heard that the military has reinstated an earlier reverse policy and that they are once again requiring at least one face-to-face class to get financial support.
As far as we know, and we've been spending a lot of time on this, discussing this issue this week, in our schedule for summer, you will see a designation C19, Charlie 19. And that's in the left-hand column. Those classes are the ones, if we were in a normal summer school session, they would be either taught face-to-face or hybrid. All the others were online. Traditionally, Leeward has more online during the summer because that allows for our help desk to go in and re-image all the computers and update them, for our maintenance staff to go in and strip and wax and clean the rooms. So we've had a lot of online. So the ones that will qualify for our GI Bill housing allowance, look for the C19. You can also look at other colleges to take their courses. We don't recommend it, but we know you have to have a face-to-face. We have about 40% of our classes are available with that C19 designation. We have about 50%, but we're running less summer school classes. But if you cannot find one here, and I've also asked division chairs to consider adding others that would meet that C19 designation. So we're trying to address it. And if not, I also would recommend to just take one class, maybe at another college. Honolulu has a few, Kapiolani has a few, and basically Windward will have very few. Theirs is not designated yet. It will be done next week. So I hope that answers your question.
Veterans, mahalo. Yes, okay.
We're good?
I think we're all good.
All right, I just wanna, toss in, because I know that maybe I mentioned it, but I don't remember mentioning it. Through this COVID-19 thing, we expect change to happen, but unless it's communicated officially from one of us, if you do hear of something strange happening in what would normally be the case and now it's something weird, consult with us or with, with your division chairs, your deans, your supervisor, because things do percolate from the rumor mill, from different places, and we all communicate, and eventually we think it's a done deal. The one that comes to mind is that 20% salary cut on every state employee. Again, it's a conversation. It's not a done deal. You're hearing it from my mouth because I don't hide from those things. But you also won't hear from me or see it in writing unless there's something official coming down. And so I just wanted to say that because I know most of us are suggesting possible change of what may happen in the fall or even beyond that. We unless something is really happening, if you don't hear it from us, it's not considered or not being considered.
We've had 117 people and they've been coming in, so thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys, I appreciate the time. And Kathleen had sent a request for a picture, and so, sorry, you want to pitch it? Go for it.
No, you do it. It's a better pitch from you. Yeah.
We do want to recognize that there are a lot of people putting themselves at risk out there for the safety of everyone. That's one. We also want to recognize, our 2020 grads are, I can't imagine what they're feeling, but we definitely want to support that class and support everyone that's going through education at this point, and then support our partners at DOE. Some of those students, while it may be perceived as if it's an extended vacation for some of them and they're getting their diploma, honestly, the change in conditions for them is something that's a struggle for everyone. So I do want us to recognize, all of these things that are happening and support those that are feeling these challenges, including ourselves. We are committed. We have employees that are here, whether it's every day or many days, and we are also doing it to help move that needle in our agenda and our mission as an educational institution. I'm committed to you, and I thank you all for everything that you've been doing. It's been a monster for all of us.
Okay, one last question, and then I have one last pitch. So the question is that you mentioned yesterday that you were attending a meeting today, and you might have more info on pay cuts.
Oh.
Well, we almost got by without mention pay cuts. Is there anything worth mentioning?
No. I mean, I'm in meetings every day, and every day, and we do hear here and there, but there's nothing. Nothing official on pay cuts. Nothing that has even come to me for.
My final pitch to everybody is to faculty who are you're communicating with your students. Could you please ask them to register for fall? I think that's one of the reasons we're doing a little better than the other community colleges. Our continuing students are the ones we need to support the most because we've been through this with them, or I should say, you've been through this with them. And the message that I shared with a few students yesterday that seemed to resonate a lot was, you don't want the virus to prevent you from achieving your dream. And so, you struggled through this semester, and we're almost there. We're almost at the finish line for this semester. So encourage them as often as you can, because studies indicate a faculty member saying, I want to see you here next semester, is the #1 factor in retention. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time. Keep doing what you're doing, and I'll keep informing you as much as I can. Have a great weekend. You're controlling on that computer, right? Or are you controlling?
Well, Leanne has been
and something, okay, I'm gonna vote for a while.
You're gonna vote? I'm not, I don't think, I don't think we're managing.
Oh, it's Leanne.
Oh, Leanne, okay.
Leanne, yeah, here.
There we go. I knew Ralph would get the background. He just was a little later. This is why I think it's so funny. It's a background from a radio show.
Oh.
Isn't that funny?
What's that?
my background.
Controlled at all.
No, Leanne's been, like,
But-
she's been,
I don't even know how to mute it.
no, oh. Really?
Well, I can, so.
Okay, I'm asking her to shut down.
Oh, I could leave the meeting. That's what I can.
Yeah. I'll leave the meeting.
Oh, this is really good. Can you shut down? Can you shut down?
Okay, Leanne's gonna go.
Were there any angry messages?
No, they're all very thank you and then I realized I shouldn't have, I was just trying to buy time, right, because you were running a little late, so I did that contest thing. So the first couple comments are, oh, is it, mental flaw? It was all these comments that, oh, they're not paying attention.
Wait, did anyone get it?
Corey did.
Oh.
And it's from this, and the reason I think it's hysterical is that it's from NPR. So I'm using a background.